So I think there is no need for me to present Bertrand in detail because he's at the origin by his pioneering work on topological recursion of one of the subjects of this meeting. So he will talk about mixed topological recursion and the two-matrix model.
Hello. So first of all, thanks a lot for inviting me. It's a pleasure. Well, sorry, I could not come in presence to the conference. I tried to attend the talk on remote, and I'm giving this lecture on remote. But okay, it has become possible these years to give lectures on remote, and that's what I'm going to do. So first, so I'm going to talk about the two-matrix model, which is relevant for many things, in particular for combinatorics of maps, typically the kind of thing that Elba was presenting in her lectures. Typically, it's related to three probabilities. And the interesting feature about two-matrix model is that there are precisely two matrices that do not commute. And that's where you can relate that to what's called, okay, to the notion of non-commutativity. So first of all, I would like to emphasize that most of what I'm going to present here is, est-ce qu'on peut montrer l'image du, is in my book. And can you see, okay, I've written a book, Counting Surfaces, and most of what I'm going to present now is in the last chapter of that book. Okay, next, on remet l'écran. Right. So first, let me introduce the two-matrix model. So first, can you read the board? So it's my introduction. I consider the probability law. Sorry?
It's okay, we can read.
Law on Hn cross Hn. So the set of, so basically we'll have two Hermitian matrices that I will call M1 and M2. And I will consider a probability law of that kind, which will be exponential minus n trace of V1 of M1 plus V2 of M2 minus C M1 M2 times dm1 dm2, where the measures dm1 and dm2 are the Lebesgue measures on the set of Hermitian matrices. Okay, so this is typically the kind of thing, and typically V1 and V2 will be polynomials. I will write them in more details later, and so it's a probability measure. And the main issue of what we want to do is to so the main issue is to compute expectation values. Typically of powers of matrices M1 and M2. And typically we want to compute something like trace of M1 to the power L1. And in the same trace, M2 to the power L tilde 1, M1 to the power L2, M2 to the power L tilde 2, and so on. We want to compute such expectation values and possibly times product of other things. This is the kind of expectation value one would like to compute. The difficulty compared to a one-matrix model is that the two matrices M1 and M2 do not commute. And so that's why we have, this is called mixed traces. And well, so first, one question is, can we find exact formula for such quantities? The answer will be yes. And another question is about the large n limit. So what is the limit, or what are the asymptotic of such quantities? Can we compute them? Can we compute the coefficient in the large n expansion by some recursion of the type topological recursion? And again, the answer is yes. And in fact, so this problem seems complicated, but in fact, everything is known. There are formulas for everything, and these formulas are, I must say, amazingly simple. These are very complicated objects, but the answers are really amazingly simple, and that's why I'm going to try to show you. So This question is important in many fields. First, in random matrix, let's say, in random matrix theory. So it has application to combinatorics of maps, and typically such expectation values are generating functions for counting maps, typically the same kind of thing that Elba was showing in her lectures. But here, since we have two matrices, each matrix is related to a certain type of faces on the maps. And typically, M1 will be related to faces carrying a plus, and M2 will be related to faces carrying a minus. Or we can say it's a two-color, plus or minus, and we like to call them, instead of colors, we like to call them spin, plus or minus. So each face carries a plus or a minus. You can think as that of a model of magnetization. Each face carries a small magnet, oriented plus or oriented minus. And okay, and this is a model of, well, this is an Ising model on a random map. I mean, this can be thought as an Ising model on a random map, and that's why it's also called Ising model. And you would like to compute all these generating functions. And what Elba showed you is that, okay, there are regular faces that carry a plus or a minus, and there are also some special faces that are called the marked faces. And in fact, typically such an expectation value here corresponds to having a marked face, but where in the marked face you have some boundaries that have a plus, and some boundaries that have a minus. Typically, like that. So typically, this marked face has 4 components of different colors. One of length 1 with minus, one of length 2 with plus, one of length 2 with minus, followed by one of length 1 with plus. And it is related to such an expectation value with, let's say, L1 would be 2, then L tilde 1 would be 2, then L2 would be 1, then L tilde 2 would be 1. The powers of the matrices are related to the length, to the number of edges of the boundaries of a marked face. I will talk more about the relationship between this model, this two-matrix model, and the combinatorics of maps of the Ising model tomorrow. Now I will focus more on really how to compute such expectation values. So the first thing I will do is first define the quantities of interest. So the two quantities so the expectation values we would like to compute. And first, I will start by non-mixed traces. So this means that I will want to compute the expectation values of only powers of the matrix M1, L1, trace of M1 to the power L2, and so on, trace of M1 to the power Ln. So this is typically the kind of expectation values you would like to compute. And in fact, these are the ones that satisfy the standard topological recursion. And this is typically the kind of thing that Elba was doing in her lectures. In fact, it is convenient to take a sum over L1, Ln, and multiply by 1 over x1 to the L1 plus 1, xn to the Ln plus 1. And this is the same thing as computing the expectation value, I mean formally, of trace of 1 over x1 minus m1, trace of 1 over x2 minus m1, and so on, trace of 1 over xn minus m1. Okay, and let me, so These are called the resolvents, and these are the powers of M1. There is a relationship between the two. So the generating functions of traces of powers, so if you do the summation over L1, Ln, is the generating function of resolvents, and vice versa if you want to go backwards. If you want to extract from the generating function of from the expectation values of product of resolvents, if you want to re-extract this expectation value, you just take a residue. So basically, you just use the fact that the m to the L is the residue of x to the L, 1 over x minus m. And the residue is an integral, put dx. It's a residue at infinity, and there is a minus sign. Okay. So you just use that. So basically, you can recover traces of powers from traces of resolvents by taking residues. And let's give a name to that quantity. Let me call it Wn hat of x1 xn equals, so this expectation value, E of trace of 1 over x, so product from I equals 1 to n of xi minus m1. So here, so far, we have only m1. We are only defining things with only the m1 matrix. Now I call it Wn hat because, in fact, there is something more interesting than expectation values. These are the cumulants. So so probably many of you already know what are cumulants, but maybe let me make a small reminder. So it's basically, it's a little bit like covariance. So let me define, cumulants, or which is also called connected correlation functions. So, okay. So the idea is that, okay, when you have an expectation value of a product, A times B, a product of two quantities, whatever they are, and typically for us this would be the traces, then it's interesting to compute the covariance, which is you subtract the product of expectation values. And you call that EC of A, B. So by definition, the cumulant expectation value or the connected expectation value is the expectation value of a product minus the product of expectation values. Let's also define that EC of A. So when you have a product of only one term, the connected, so the cumulant is the same as the expectation value. You can write this, you can write the first equation the other way around. So expectation value of AB is the connected expectation value of AB plus the product Okay. Now this can be generalized to a product of more than two terms. So if you want the connected expectation value of a product of two terms is the same as the covariance. But now you can define that for a product of more terms, and typically the expectation value of A1, AN will be the sum of the partitions of 1 to n of the product of all parts of the EC of the part. So this is what you have here. AB is a set with two elements. You have either a partition with only one part, or you have two parts. You take the sum of all of them. And this system can be inverted, and you can recover EC in terms of expectation values. I will not do it here. It's a standard thing. But let me just say that what we are really interested in is, so without the hat, this will be the connected expectation value. Sorry, there was a trace here. So it's more interesting to compute connected expectation values than non-connected. They contain the same information, and you can go, there is a bijection between the two. If you know one, you know the other. But it's more interesting to compute the connected because they have better large n limits. And they satisfy many beautiful equations. All right. So
excuse me, I have a question. Does this EC have multiple arguments, or is it just defined in some way on AB?
Excuse me, the sound is not very good, and I couldn't understand the question.
Yes.
Can you type it? I know
EC have multiple. Yes.
Can you repeat?
Yes. Can you repeat the question?
Does EC have multiple arguments?
Does what?
Or how is it defined on AB?
So EC, sorry, it has so it's an EC of a product. It's EC of a product.
Bertrand, he wrote the question on the chat.
Okay.
Does EC have multiple arguments, or how is EC of AB defined?
Okay, I prefer to refer to standard combinatorics, but basically EC of a product of two terms is the covariance. So it's just EC of AB is defined as what I wrote here. EC of the product AB is defined as E of as the expectation of value of the product minus the product of expectation values. And the others for 3, 4, 5 are defined in similar ways. So it's just that. So basically the idea of EC is that you take the expectation value of the product and you subtract expectation values of subproducts. So I don't want, so in fact this will not be needed in this lecture today. This will be needed in the lectures later, and in fact I think we shall never really need more than a product of two terms. Okay. Let me go now to the other quantities of interest that I want to make, but the idea of EC is just that you have a product of traces and you subtract expectation values of subproducts in a certain way. Exactly like what you do for covariance. Okay, let me move to other definitions. Okay, now let's start introducing some mixed correlation, mixed expectation values. And I will want now to take this following expectation value, trace of 1 over x1 minus m1. But now let me put an m2 to the power k inside the trace. And trace of 1 over x2 minus m1. And now only powers of m1, xn minus m1. Okay, let's take the cumulants again. That means, for instance, if you have only two traces, it means you subtract the expectation value of that trace times the expectation value of that trace. And let me define this one as unk of x1. And you see that x1 now plays a special role, so I write it this way. Okay, so this is just a definition, and this function will be useful to find what's called the loop equations or the Tutt equations that Elba was considering. And let me now again take a sum over k with some parameter, and somehow I'm going to write something like sum over k, and it's nearly, but not, don't write this. Okay, I'm going to do nearly something like that, but not exactly. Let me, so far you remember in my, I had two polynomials, V1 of M1 and V2 of M2 that entered my probability law, which was my exponential minus trace of V1 of M1 plus V2 of M2 minus C M1 M2 dm1 dm2. That was my probability law. Here, let me write explicitly what are these two polynomials in the following way. A m1 to the square over 2 minus sum from k equals 3 to d tk over k m1 to the k. And this one, let me call it bm2 square over 2 minus sum from k equals 3 to d tilde t tilde over k m2 to the power k. And let me call t2 equals minus a and t tilde 2 equals minus b. Okay, and I give a special role to the quadratic terms. And you will see why when I will talk about the relationship to maps. The quadratic terms play a special role. All right, so in fact, instead of this sum, I'm going to do another sum, which is the following. Sum over j, t tilde j, sum over k, y to the power j minus 2 minus k, and j runs from 2 to d tilde, and k runs, sum from j equals 2 to d tilde, and sum from k equals 0 to j minus 2. And let me call this one un of x1 y, x2, xn. Okay. So this contains more or less the same information, but it's a polynomial of y. And in fact, let me add to that plus, in case n equals 1, c square x minus c v prime 2 of y. This will be convenient. So that's the definition of some. So this this function un of n plus 1 variable is a quantity that we would like to compute later, and it contains the information about expectation values of traces that are mixed. It contains traces that contain a power of m1 and a power of m2 inside the same trace. And this is one, it's of interest because basically it will appear in the equations. It can also be written, so if I rewrite what this sum is doing here, in fact, it can also be written as the expectation value of trace of 1 over x1 minus m1 times y minus m2 times v prime 2 of y minus v prime 2 of m2. If you compute this polynomial, you will see that it's exactly doing that. Trace of 1 over x2 minus m1, trace of 1 over xn minus m1, plus delta n1, c square x minus c v prime 2 of y. Okay. So this is the function un we will want to compute later. Let me give two other functions that we want to compute later. Another one is the following. Pn of x1 y, x2 xn will be the expectation value of trace of x1 minus m1, y minus m2. Let me do the same thing. So it's a polynomial of y, but now let me also make it a polynomial of x by multiplying by that times over traces. So this one is a polynomial of both x1. Sorry, this is x1. It's a polynomial of both x1 and y. It's a polynomial in these two variables. In the other variables, it's not a polynomial. It's typically a series, and in fact, it's algebraic. No, sorry, it's not even algebraic. So in the other variables, it's a series, but in the two first variables, this is a polynomial. And the degree is 1 less than the degree of v prime 1, so it's d minus 1, and the degree in y is d tilde minus, sorry, d minus 2 and d tilde minus 2. Okay, and this will be needed. Another one that we shall need is this one. And it's even simpler. So now I just take x1 minus m1 times 1 over y minus m2 and trace of 1 over x2 minus m1, trace of 1 over xn minus m1. In fact, I need the ends here because the recursion relations that we are going to find, like touch relations and so on, will be recursions on n. I mean, n will change in the relations, so it's useful to write things this way. So these are typically some expectation values we would like to compute and that we will compute. Now, let me go to really fully mixed traces, because you see so far I was mixing only a power of m1 times the power of m2 in the first trace, and then in all the other traces we had only powers of m1, and in the first trace we had only two terms, a power of m1 and a power of m2. Now, what about all the other possibilities? And as I told you, I will compute explicitly all possible mixed expectation values, and the main issue is in fact to write them, to write all these possible expectation values in a nice way. So typically what we would like to compute now is something like E. Let me not put the trace of 1 over x1 minus m1, 1 over y1 minus m2, 1 over x2 minus m1, 1 over y2 minus m2, and so on. We take a certain number of them, then we take another trace. Okay, let me say, okay, let's say we have 4 terms here. Let's say x3 minus m1, 1 over y3 minus m2, and so on, as many as you like. And so this is typically the full, so this one is the most general mixed expectation value that you may want to compute. And in fact, the good thing, so now what we have to put to do, so you see we have many functions of several variables, and the idea is to put them together in a certain, basically we will construct a matrix, we will put them in a matrix form, and in the matrix form everything will be much simpler. So you see that basically if you had a resolvent of M1 following another resolvent of M1, so if you would have a power of M1 times the power of M1, you could put them together. So you always have to alternate powers of M1 and powers of M2 and powers of M1. You always have to alternate. Let me show you how to make the most general expectation value that we want to consider. And also another thing is that here I have labeled variable 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, but it's totally arbitrary. In fact, so let me start with only one of them here. We could compute this one. We could typically also, so what are all the possible ways of having 4 terms like that contain mixed traces. So we could also do that. Y2 minus M2, 1 over X1, X2 minus M1, 1 over Y1 minus M2. Okay, we could want to compute that one. We could also want to compute typically these ones, trace of 1 over X1 minus M1, 1 over Y1 minus M2, times trace of 1 over X2 minus M1, trace of 1 over X2 minus Y2 minus M2. Okay. In fact, what I just want to say is that now let n larger than 1 and let x1 xn and y1 yn 2n variables. And basically, I want to consider all possible expectation values of product of traces, and each trace contains a product of resolvents that alternate between M1 and M2 with the variables, with some of the variables there. And I will organize them in a nice way. And so basically, if I start with 1 over x1 minus m1, the next one will be sum of the y something minus m2. And so it means that I started from x1. I want to choose one of the y's to put next, and let me define a permutation pi, and this will be pi of 1. Then I want another m1, or maybe I just want a product of 2 terms, and that's all. But the idea is that you go from one to the next by a permutation pi, and then you go from one to the next to another x, and let me call that permutation pi tilde inverse. And then the next one will be y of pi tilde minus 1 pi of 1 minus m2, and so on until, so here you go again by pi, okay, and you go again by pi tilde minus 1 until you reach back x1. And each time you have made a cycle, you close. You put a trace. Okay, so you put a trace each time the pi tilde minus 1 goes back to 1. And then you take a product of all cycles. Where you go from pi, so you go from an x to a y by pi, and you go from a y to an x by pi tilde inverse. Until you take, until you reach the end of the cycle. So let me give a name to these objects. So this is really the key to the final formula. It's just to organize all the generating functions in the shape of a matrix. So let me define h of pi tilde, and it will be a function of, okay, let me denote x with an arrow vector, and y with an arrow will be just this collection of numbers. So this is what I will denote x, and this is why I will denote y. Okay, it will be defined as the expectation value of product of C equals cycles of pi tilde inverse composed with pi. And for each cycle, you will have, leave some space here if you are writing, trace of product. So let's say xi1 minus m1, 1 over y pi of i1 minus m2, and so on. I mean, you go with pi, and to the next you go with pi tilde inverse until you reach the cycle. But let me add something. Let me put a minus 1 over nc here. And let me also put delta, the length of the cycle being 1. So each time the length of the cycle is 1, you put the number 1, it's the Kronecker delta. 1 if the length of the cycle is 1, 0 otherwise. Well, so that's my definition. And H is an n factorial times n factorial matrix. Okay, so this is, and it contains all the information about all possible traces of any number of powers of matrices M1 and M2 in all possible ways. So it contains all the information, and you can recover traces of powers by taking residues. So this is the matrix we want to compute, and in fact it will be amazingly simple. It will be a one-line formula at the end. So in order to do that, we need to do some group theory. Typically, like Harish Chandra, ethics on Zuber integrals. So first of all, I think it's part 4, group integrals. So first, since M1 is a Hermitian matrix, it can be diagonalized by a unitary transformation where U1 is a unitary matrix and X is a diagonal matrix, X1, Xn. Okay. And in fact, since if you multiply to the right U1 by a diagonal matrix, unitary, somehow it will disappear in the product. So in fact, you could take, you could quotient by U1 to the power n, and this is the group that I will call Gn. Okay. So now the decomposition is not unique, but the non-uniqueness is discrete. And it's only up to a permutation of eigenvalues. All right. So so the important thing is that the measure dm1, the Lebesgue measure dm1, can be written as delta of x to the square dx du1. Here, delta of x is the so-called Vandermonde determinant, product from I j xi minus xj. Dx is just the Lebesgue measure dx1 dxn, the product of Lebesgue measures, and du1 is the Haar measure, the Haar measure of Gn. Okay. The Haar measure is something very complicated, I must say. And the issue will be to deal with this Haar measure. You can do the same thing and write that M2 equals U2 y U2 dagger. And it's useful to define the matrix U equals U1 dagger U2. Typically, the kind of quantities we want to compute with the H here will be something like, so we would like to compute now integral of, so dm1, so the probability law was exponential minus n trace of V1 of M1, but this is the same thing as V1 of X. Exponential minus n trace of V2 of M2, which is the same thing as V2 of Y. We'll have exponential nc trace of M1, M2, but M1, M2, you see that it's trace of X, U, Y, U dagger. And the expectation value we would like to compute are typically something like 1 over X minus M1, sorry, X minus M1, 1 over Y minus M2. Typically, this is the kind of thing we want to compute, but by diagonalization, it's the same thing as putting that. And you can have a product of more terms inside the trace, but this is typically the kind of thing you want to compute on time the measure, and the measure is what I've written here. So times the Vandermonde delta of X to the square, the Vandermonde delta of Y to the square, times times dx, dy, and times du1, and times du2. But you see that in the integrand, only u, which is, sorry, u equals u1 dagger u2 appears. And the product du1, du2 of measures is, you can remove the 2 is, up to a change of variable, you can remain u2 equals u1u. Okay, so if you want du2 is the same as d of u1u, but in the wedge product, the contribution of u1 disappears, and the same thing as du. Now you see that nothing depends on du1, nothing depends on u1, so the integral over du1 over gn is just something that you can factor out. Okay, so this is the kind of integral we want to compute, and this will be just a constant depending only on n that we shall factorize out. Let's forget about it. So from now on, let me ignore that constant. It will play no role. So now this is the kind of integral we want to compute. Let me introduce the Itzikson-Zuber-Harish-Chandra formula. Let me define I0 of x, y, which are diagonal matrices, is defined as integral over gn of exponential. In fact, let me change y to minus 1 over nc y. Okay, let me just make a change of variables. It will be easy to recover at the end, but or somehow let me make the choice c equals minus 1 over n. This is equivalent. Let me make that choice, but basically let me consider this one with just the coefficient 1 here, x, u, y, u dagger, du. So this is called the Itzikson-Zuber integral. In fact, it's also called somehow Harish-Chandra integral, except for there is a very small detail, which is of no importance in the algebraic computation, but if you want to really be precise, here this is a Itzikson-Zuber integral, and it is not a Harish-Chandra integral. In Harish-Chandra, x and y are in the Cartan algebra of the group. So here the group is the group of unitary matrices, and the Cartan algebra is the group of is the set of anti-Hermitian matrices, and the Cartan means diagonal, so diagonal anti-Hermitian matrices, which means that if you really want that to be Harish-Chandra integral, then x and y should be diagonal matrices with purely imaginary eigenvalues. Whereas what I call Itzikson-Zuber is when you have real, and remember that here in our problem, x and y came from the diagonalization of a Hermitian matrix, so they are real. They are not purely imaginary. But in the algebraic formulas, it will be totally irrelevant. So it's nearly the same thing. But there is a small detail. So now let me also define I, the matrix IP P tilde of xy. And it will also depend on x and y. It's more or less the same thing. Exponential minus trace of x uy u dagger du times product of C equals cycles of p tilde minus 1 pi and delta length of the cycle minus 1 plus trace, so trace of again 1 over x I1 minus x u 1 over y pi I1 minus y u dagger and so on until you reach the end of the cycle. Okay, so this is the definition. And now the theorems. So now the theorems. Well, probably many of you have already heard about the Harish-Chandra-Ethikson-Zuber formula. So theorem. And the first one is the Harish-Chandra-Ethikson-Zuber formula. And we just say that I0 of xy is given by a very simple formula. It's the Vandermonde of x, Vandermonde of y, times the determinant of the matrix e to the minus xi yj. And let me define this matrix eij equals e to the minus xi yj. And so basically this is determinant of E. In fact, to tell the truth, there is a constant factor in front, a little bit like the group integral, which depends only on n and which you consider as a normalization. Let's say that we normalize the Haar measure in such a way that this coefficient is 1, and anyways this coefficient is not important. So let me not write it, but the true formula, the coefficient is a product of Coxeter numbers. But it depends only on n, it depends only on the group, it does not depend on the variables x, y. So let's ignore it. Okay, so I'm not going to talk about the proof of this result. It's very famous. There are many, many proofs. None of them is really easy, I would say, but okay. So now let's start by computing when we start putting some traces of powers of x and y. And the first formula I'm going to write was in fact found by Morozov. And I rewrote it in a different way. It's equivalent to Morozov, but the way I wrote it can be generalized. So first, in fact, let's try to compute e to the minus trace of x u y u dagger du times, and you would like to take some powers of u, uij, u dagger kl, something like that. Okay, imagine you don't put a dagger. Imagine you just have two u's. This would be 0 by, I mean, it's easy to see by symmetries that it is 0. And the only way is to have a polynomial of the u and the u daggers to be non-zero is that there must be always the same number of u and u daggers. And the indices must be the same. And in fact, with the quadratic term, the only possible expectation value that will be non-vanishing is that one. And basically, Morozov found a formula to compute that quantity on Gn. But let me make a generating series for it. 1 over x minus xi, 1 over y minus yj of this, which is equivalent to doing what I just did before, to doing trace of 1 over x minus x u 1 over y minus y u dagger. So this is the same thing as that, so it contains the same information. And again, let me put a 1 plus, because somehow this is a pi on the pi tilde, such that pi tilde composed with pi is of length as a unique cycle of length 1. So let's put a 1 plus here. So the theorem is that this is equal to 1 over delta of x, delta of y, determinant of the same matrix E plus 1 over x minus x E 1 over y minus y. And okay, this is the theorem by Morozov. And okay, let me associate it. Okay, this is the way I rewrote it, but now it will be generalizable. Another way of writing it is that if you divide by I0 of the same quantity, it is 1 over det E times det E plus 1 over x minus x E 1 over y minus y. Okay, and you can put this one inside. So you see the answer is quite simple, unexpectedly simple, I would say. Now let me show you another such theorem. Another such theorem is that if you take integral, so let f of m1, m2 polynomial, so a non-commutative polynomial of m1 and m2 of two matrices. So typically it can contain traces of sums of powers or things like that. But we have a theorem that integral over gn exponential minus trace of u x u y u dagger du times f of x u y u dagger. And typically all our expectation values are of that type. Then the theorem is that this is equal to sum over permutations sigma minus 1 to the power the sign delta of x delta of y times integral over well, let's call it Bn, and I will say, so this is the set of strictly upper triangular complex matrices. And let me call that dt. And this is the Lebesgue measure because this is a vector space. It has a nice Lebesgue measure. Exponential minus trace of t dagger times f of x plus t y plus t dagger. Okay, this theorem is, was derived by myself and Prats-Ferrer. Okay, so just observe what it is. Here we have a polynomial, but the measure du is the Haar measure. It's a very, very complicated object, and computing integrals with the Haar measure is really hard, and that's why basically Harishchandra was, made a breakthrough because he was able to compute such integrals, and this is usually really very complicated integrals. Whereas in the right-hand side, here we have y permitted by sigma. In the right-hand side, what we have is an integral over with a Lebesgue measure on a vector space of triangular matrices with something exponential quadratic times polynomial in T. This is very easy, on the contrary. So the left-hand side is very difficult, the right-hand side is extremely easy. And in fact, the right-hand side can be computed in the full details. And for instance, the first theorem, the Morozov, is a consequence of this one. I'm not going to give a proof of this one. I do not know any easy proof. All proofs that I know are quite difficult, long, and very, and they involve things that are far beyond what I'm going to present here. It's an amazingly powerful theorem. And just for instance, if you take just f to be the polynomial 1, okay, just take f equals 1, you recognize that the right-hand side is the, sorry, I forgot an important term, exponential minus trace of x, y, sigma. You see that basically this is a constant. On the right-hand side is the Harish-Chandraiti-Xanzuber integral. If you take f to be a trace of a bilinear thing, you will recover Morozov formula very easily from this theorem. Let me try to give now the final answer. So the last theorem that I'm going to write, so is the theorem for directly the final thing we wanted to compute. So remember I of pi tilde is depending on the two matrices x, y, and it depended on a set of variables. So it is equal, and again the formula will be amazingly simple. Sum over sigma, so it's permutation of n. Yes, it's a permutation of n matrices. Let me just mention that this theorem easily generalizes to any Lie group where you replace this by the Weil group. Here the product of simple roots, of positive roots. Here the Borel algebra, I mean, you can imagine how to do so. So it can be generalized to all Lie groups. This one can also be generalized to Lie groups, and so let me write the formula. So remember, this is, so let me write the formula directly for the matrix. So I is a matrix on the left-hand side. And here, let me put a product from I equals 1 to n of a matrix that I will write later, m of x, y, xi, y sigma I. Each m is a matrix defined by the following. So definition of the matrix m pi tilde of x, y, and there are two variables, let me call them xi, eta, is defined as product from I equals 1 to n. This is small n, this is the sign of the vector x here. This is not the same thing as the big N here. Delta pi of I, pi tilde of I, plus 1 over xi minus xi, eta minus y of pi of I. So M is an n times n factorial times n factorial matrix. And it is symmetric. It's not totally obvious from the definition, but you can think of it and you will see easily that it is symmetric. And so that's all. So basically, this is the final formula for I, and this is a very simple formula. Just let me. So I see the time is finished now, but let me just make a comment. Here we have a product of matrices. We have a product of n matrices, and they involve xi, y sigma I. Okay, we symmetrize over. We have this sum over permutations, so we symmetrize over the y's, but we do not symmetrize over the x's. So what guarantees that this product will in fact be symmetric in the eigenvalues of x? It's not obvious from the formula. And in fact, there is a miracle, is that this product does not depend on the order, because all these matrices do commute together. We have a lemma, so that m of x, y, xi, eta commutes with m, x, y of xi prime, eta prime. They all commute together. So in fact, the product of matrices does not depend on the order, and it looks very much like a determinant in the end. So I will stop here for today. Next time I will really talk, I will say a little bit more about this matrix M, because in fact we can go much further in the computation. This matrix M is really magical, and I think this suggests that there is an integrable system attached to it. I don't know which one. I've asked the question to many people, specialists of integrable systems. It looks like the property of some transfer matrix in an integrable system, but I don't know which one. But this matrix is truly amazing, and it gives the answer of any expectation values of group integrals of type Harish-Chandra, and not only for the group UN. In fact, it is the same matrix that gives the answer for all Lie groups. And it's truly amazing. And so next time, I will give really the formula for the expectation values of traces of powers of M1 and M2, because so far I've integrated only the angular part, the group part. I have not yet integrated over the eigenvalues. Next time I will do it. And also I will talk about large N expansion by solving loop equations or Tut's recursions for maps. And we will see how the topological recursion arises. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, so thank you very much, Bertrand. So there are certainly many questions. In the classroom or outside. Oh, yes. Good. So there is a question on the chat. Are there any related results when integrating some matrix expression over Mn divided by Un, or maybe quotienting out the Hermitian matrix to another group?
Yes, that's what I said. Okay, in fact, the equivalent of this theorem and also this theorem do exist for any Lie groups. Yes, so for instance, if you quotient by not by UN but by another, for instance, if you take symmetric matrices, and so you quotient by the orthogonal group instead of the unitary group, or you could also take quaternionic matrices, and where you want to quotient by symplectic matrices, so you could quotient by the group of symplectic matrices. There exists a similar formula where here you have the Vandermonde is replaced by product of positive roots. The symmetric group is replaced by the Weil group. The set of upper triangular matrices is replaced by the Borel algebra, and so on. So there exist similar results for other cases too.
Any other question? So otherwise, I take advantage of my position of chairman to ask my own question. So in the ordinary Harish-Chandra-Itzigson-Zuber integral, you can show that it's one loop exact using some Duistermatt localization.
Yeah.
Can you have something similar for this extension with the function f?
Yes, well, you see that it's very similar, and I do not know a proof in the Duistermatt-Ekman or localization way. I mean, I don't know how to prove this formula by localization. I believe it's possible. We proved it by other methods, but indeed we could expect that this. Okay, somehow this is very similar to. Okay, if you think about the theorem here, the Harish-Chandra formula. Basically the critical values of U of this integrand, the critical values. So if you compute if you write d over du of that equals 0, that's the critical points. And the critical values of U are precisely the U's, the unitary matrices that correspond to permutations. So this sum over permutations is in fact the sum over critical values, and this is really what the Duistermatt-Ekman formula does. This exponential is exactly equal to that evaluated at the critical value, and the denominator is the 1 over let's say, the second derivative. And the rest, I mean, when f is not a constant, there is still an integral to do. So it's not totally exact, but this integral, which is a Gaussian integral of a polynomial, is made of a finite number of terms given by Wick's theorem. So it's not, you can say it's really one loop exact, but nearly. It's a few loop exact.
Okay, so thank you. Last call for a question. Well, if not, let's thank Bertrand again.